The cognitive scientist Daniel Willingham looked at the way students actually evaluate or frame their teachers and come up with a very interesting observation, and one that has really big implications for how we teach, particularly in the context of our research project. So what he did, he reviewed the feedback questionnaires that professors typically gave out to students to get their feedback. And what he noticed, that there was a very interesting finding that most of the question items are actually redundant. What he suggests is that a simple 2-item survey would be as useful as the 30-item typical surveys that they looked at, because all the questions really boil down to 2. Does the professor, lecturer, teacher seem like a nice person? And we have to ask ourselves, well, what does that mean? What does a teacher have to do in terms of methods, strategies, communication style, etc., to be perceived as a nice person by students? And the second one, is the class well organized? And again, we've got the same question. What are the things that teachers do for students to perceive the class as being well organized? So students don't realize this, but essentially they treat the 30 items as variants of these 2 questions. So here's our big question, fundamental to our research. What are the components of the experience? In other words, students who are in our classrooms making sense of being there, or making no sense at all maybe sometimes. But what is going on in our heads, and what are we doing in the external environment, and how are these coming together to create the experience? And what we're trying to do is obviously create a positive experience for learning. But what are the components of the experience that would lead students, not all, but towards the perception of us as a nice teacher and a well-organized teacher? Nice summary here from Willingham. Well, when we think of a good teacher, it seems to focus on personality attributes. And I think we know that the way we present ourselves, himself or herself, a communication style, voice, body language, can have massive impacts on the way students perceive us. But that's only half a good teaching, according to Willingham. Jokes, stories, warm manner do generate goodwill and get students to pay attention. But we want a little bit more than this, otherwise are we just entertainers? But how do we make sure students are actually learning in a meaningful way? That is, they're thinking about the content they're engaging with, they're connecting the new knowledge to their prior knowledge, and they're building useful understanding and skills. So that's the second property of being a good teacher. Organising the ideas in a lesson plan in a coherent way. That's our subject content, the way we chunk it up, structure it, sequence it, so students can understand it. And to understand it, they need to be able to process it, as we know, take it through their memory systems, activate prior knowledge, make connections, do thinking. And this is where the cognitive scientific principles come into play. Daniel Willingham had a number of them. What I did in creative teaching was to take his concept of cognitive scientific principles, look across the field, and that's where the 10 core principles of learning came from. They are 10 cognitive scientific principles that we can use in the way we organize our lessons, and hopefully, if we do it well, the students consciously, and probably equally importantly subconsciously, perceive us as being well-organized teachers. So finally, bit of activation of your prior knowledge. Think back through all your years of teaching, and there's a lot of experience to draw on. What are the things teachers do, and what have you done in terms of particular strategies, methods, combinations, whatever your communication style, that are likely to lead students to experience them, and in your case you, and therefore frame the teacher in terms of both nice teacher and well organized teacher. So do a bit of thinking on this, and we'll be picking up on it later.